everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And I'm excited to be here today. And I'm excited because I am still in California, and later this week, I'm going to be in Detroit. So I have no idea what the temperature is going to be like or if it's even going to be pretty, but wish me luck. Anyway, enough about me. Today's guest is amazing, and she and I speak the same language, so I know we're going to have a lot of fun. Her name is Amy White. Let's bring her on. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hey, hi. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I've been looking forward to this conversation pretty much since we met. So I am excited, and I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Okay, well, I am a holistic nutritionist and a functional nutrition and lifestyle practitioner, which just means that I bring sort of the functional medicine modalities into how I approach wellness through food and other lifestyle factors. And I got started in this not for a health concern of my own, but for my family, so my daughter. So I got into nutrition because of gut health, which is not unusual, but it was one of those moments. So I kind of got into this and from a place of knowing nothing. My daughter had always had gut problems. She was an infant. She was colicky. She cried all the time. We didn't sleep for 3 years, kind of thinking that was normal. Eventually her pediatrician was like, well, she just has reflux, so she just needs antacids. Which I remember thinking with my little 6-year-old going, oh, I didn't know kids were on antacids. That was where I was. And she never ended up taking them because they didn't work for her. Thank goodness. But she's 16. She's getting ready to, we're thinking about college, getting ready to move away from home. And I said, we need to do something. She doesn't feel well. We can't even go to restaurants. When we go to eat at a restaurant, she inevitably has to get up and go outside and sit on the curb. And how safe is that, depending on where you are? And because she felt she'd get this thing in her chest where she'd just feel kind of overwhelmed and this pressure. So she'd have to go outside and take deep breaths and sit down. And it was weird. So gastroenterologist, I'm like, let's just do this. Let's find the specialist. Let's make it happen. Let's get the answers and get it figured out once and for all. So I'm super good mom, 16 years, totally late to the party. But we got there. So we did. And we went in and we had the scope done, which again, no idea it was so invasive. Anesthesia, the whole bit. I was like, so met my daughter in the recovery room. So she's waking up and the doctor comes in and she's like, oh, she's so great. Everything is so great. Her esophagus is just beautiful. There's no signs of ever having reflux. And I remember thinking, well, I guess that's good. And she's like, yeah, she's great. And I'm like going, well, nothing has changed since we arrived and now. So what does this mean she's good? And she's like, yeah, no, she's fine. And then she turns around and she starts leaving. This is the favorite part. She stops. She turns back around. She goes, I mean, her small intestine is red and inflamed, but that's nothing. And then she left. And then I just sat there and I thought, that seems like something to me. But as I said, I literally was at this place where I knew nothing, except that I knew red and inflamed definitely usually isn't good.
Yeah.
So I was in Chicago at the time and I was complaining to some of my girlfriends. I'm like, because it was that moment in time where I was actually at a dead end. I don't like not having answers, and I don't tend to settle for no answers. And I just didn't know who else to ask. I'm like, that was the person I was supposed to ask. And my girlfriend said, oh, you need to go see this nutritionist. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but I'm totally in. So that's where it all started. And she just made some dietary changes, super simple stuff. Basically, she said, stop eating gluten. And, we went to Whole Foods right from the appointment, bought every single thing we could find that said gluten-free. Again, I don't recommend that, but, that's all I knew. And even with that teeny tiny little change, things happened. Good things happened. And I thought, wait a second. And I just was like, I need to know more. I need to understand because food appears to be magical. And I started reading everything I could find. And I said to my husband, I'm going to need to join a program, take a class, get a degree because I need a reading list and I'm out of things to read. And we were in Chicago. So I looked at all the universities around us and I was looking at traditional programs,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, no, this is not what I need. And then I finally ran into this idea of holistic nutrition. And then once I started reading that, I was like, this is it. So anyway, I ended up getting my master's degree in nutrition, holistic nutrition,
Wow.
and getting board certified, and then getting certified in functional nutrition. So that's where it started. And here I am. It's been, I don't know, 12 or 13 years at this point.
That's amazing. And I love that, like, you had this interest because you're like, I need to know more. And then all of a sudden your life just flipped and you're doing something completely different.
Yes.
Insatiable hunger when it comes to knowledge.
Yeah. And I have so many books. I'm in the middle of like 3 or 4 different books all the time, so I can't help it. It's so interesting. Everything sort of starts fitting together and clicking. And I'm like, I read this, and then wait a minute, that goes with this. It's so fun. Yeah.
So for our viewers, I would love for you to explain the difference between like a nutritionist and what you do. And because people, like you said, you didn't even know what a nutritionist was. So
as it turns out, she was a holistic nutritionist, the woman we met with. So that was good. What I sort of differentiate from is more like, and people get mad, but it's more like a dietitian. And there's great registered dietitians out there, but there's also a lot who kind of follow sort of the status quo and kind of maybe what's historically been the way things have gone, but maybe not looking at newer research, or I'm just not sure. But the syllabi or syllabus that I was reading for those programs was saying a lot of the things that I kind of used to believe, but then learned maybe weren't right because of how we shifted our lifestyle and diet. And so I thought, well, I don't know, so that's where I was kind of off. And so when I started looking at holistic nutrition, it was really more of a whole body approach, and everything was synergistic. And there was a lot of interest in how do you feel versus your labs say this, and you look great. I had this thing with my daughter, and then a few years later, I went through something with my husband, and I felt like, the thing with my daughter, that was just getting me ready to do this thing with my husband. And he literally saw 6 specialists. We're in Northern California at UC Davis. And I was kind of at my wit's end when the one guy said, "You're like the healthiest sick person I've ever met." But that is so unhelpful. But his labs looked great, but yet he was in the emergency room regularly because he couldn't breathe. So anyway, I was a little too close. And once I realized, oh my gosh, it's a gut issue, I'm supposed to help you fix this. They can't help you. Then things started turning around. But it was scary enough that I couldn't see past, like, who's the expert? As it turned out, I was the expert.
Well, it's funny because it's ingrained in our society to trust the white coat. And, it's like, you're the doctor. I'm going to, even though that's your specialty, sometimes it's hard to, like you said, your emotions were involved. So something interesting that I wanted to point out is he was having breathing issues, and yet it was the gut issue.
Yes. So when there's gut issues, if you don't get in there and start taking care of it, that tends to build into more. And often you can result in an autoimmune condition. And so he was in his late 50s at the time, and he was labeled with asthma. First time in his entire life. All of a sudden he's in his late 50s and he has asthma. And that's an autoimmune condition. So he was I'm sure you've heard the term leaky gut. And because of you, your audience probably has heard it. But he was the poster child for leaky gut, meaning anytime he would eat anything, he would have an almost immediate reaction. So to this day, if he eats chocolate, he will lose his voice instantly. But he was clogging up just from any kind of dairy. If he licked an ice cream cone, boom, he was done. And there were other things going on. But the thing that was so scary was that his oxygen would drop into the low 80s. Like he was closing in on turning blue. And so we'd have to rush him to the emergency room. We didn't know what was happening. And they would admit him, and then they'd keep him for 24 hours. And so it took about 2 years to kind of eliminate the things that were offensive to his body, so that were inflaming him, and clean him up and get him feeling normal again. And then every now and then we'd end up at the emergency room.
Yeah.
What is happening? He's like, I don't know. I didn't eat anything weird. And turned out he was reacting to rice, which,
Wow.
right? Often people think of rice as a safe grain.
Mm-hmm.
And he was reacting to rice. And it took him 72 hours to react to rice, which is why it took us so long to figure out what was going on. So I always tell people, when you're doing an elimination diet, you have to be so careful, and you have to really monitor what's happening for days, because it can take that long for something to really show up.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, that gut is not what I focus. I mean, well, I always focus on the gut. Everything starts in the gut. But my work sort of morphed, because at the same time I was helping my daughter, I was at sort of my wit's end. It was kind of, at that point I was probably 40, but a couple of years prior to that, I was in my late 30s. And I was at that place where I had kind of lost myself. Mm-hmm. So my kids were getting to be teenagers. I was sort of starting to reclaim some time to myself, and really realized that I didn't like what I was seeing. I didn't like the person that I had morphed into. I didn't recognize me. I was bigger. My clothes were tight. I was constantly hungry. I was cranky. I was addicted to sugar. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't pleasant to be around. And so while we went through this transition with my daughter, and I realized food was magic, I was like, hold on a second, because I thought I was doing everything right. I was following the food guidelines. I was just like, I'm going to get my body back. I'm going to get myself back. And, 2.5 years into that, and nothing had changed.
Yeah.
But then I realized what happened with my daughter, and I thought, And so when I started nutrition school, I started making that connection between food and the body. And I always refer to it as sort of this communication problem. So food is information.
That's right.
And if we're telling our body the wrong thing, we're not going to get what we want. But we don't realize that we're communicating the wrong thing, because we think we're eating the right, So it's a communication problem. So once you realize how to use food to tell your body exactly what you want, then things start happening. And so that's what I learned to do. So I'm now 54, and if I had been my 54-year-old self in my 37-year-old body, I would have been so happy. So I am way better now than I was then. And so my thing is really empowering women who are sort of hitting this middle age, this midlife, and realizing they're not really so happy with who they are. They just don't feel good. And I also consult with local doctors, so I see local patients, and I hear often that people think that's it. They've had their best years, and they just are, what can I do so it just doesn't get worse? And I'm like, you're 38. So it breaks my heart when I hear people think that it's kind of over, and they're just going to have to, manage the status quo until basically they die. And I'm like, no. Oh no, so much more out there for you.
Now, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things that I find frustrating, and what, I do as well, because people are like, oh, it's just my age. This is just how it is. No, just because you're used to it doesn't mean you have to keep having this experience. Let's make this stop. Let's change your experience. Why not thrive instead of survive,
Right. Change your experience. I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
So you have to want to. I mean, it's not like you can just snap your fingers and be like, I'm going to be a different person tomorrow. You can try that, but usually that approach, you fizzle out. So you have to kind of figure out how to get in there, how to start sort of adjusting your environment to fit your lifestyle in small little ways, so that you basically turn the mindfulness or the mindlessness that's throwing you on the wrong path into an ability to have this mindlessness that moves you along the right path. But you have to, in between, you have to make that shift and create that new habit that then you can turn automatic and then stop thinking about, because now you naturally do it. And that's what I say is you're creating this lifestyle that naturally now supports your health, your wellness, and the body that you want to live in.
So, I love that, because I just keep on thinking about me, because
right,
I'm just thinking about me, and I know so much about nutrition and health and wellness because it's my jam, which actually are my initials. But the thing that, took me a long time, and this is why I want you to describe why you are useful to somebody like me, is because, I eat healthy and I chose healthy foods, and yet I still had the inflammation. I still had gut issues. I still had all of these things, even though I cut out sugar, I'd cut out processed foods. I'd done a lot of different things. Now, granted, I know because I went to somebody like you to figure out what was going on with me, because I knew I didn't have to live like that. But how does somebody know? Like, do they just have to start listening to themselves, or if they're healthy, where do they start?
So that's so interesting. And of course, right, that's the easy answer. Well, listen to your body. So easy to say, not so easy to do. And that's kind of what I find when I work with people is intuitively they know what's happening, but there's so much mucky water that they can't see through it. So somebody like me and the person you went to kind of helps. Let's clear the muddy water. So let's see what's happening. And then I find mostly what I end up doing is really kind of helping them stay focused on what's going right and not on what maybe they think is going wrong. So we have to, if we're focusing on what's going right, all of a sudden you're like, oh, because people lose sight of the fact that they're actually making progress, and then they just give up. They're like, it's not working. I'm like, it's so working in so many ways. But they tend to be very focused on like one metric, and I'm like, well, that's not the one you should be looking at right now. It'll catch up with you, but let's look at all this other stuff. So you got to kind of clear the muddy waters, and then you have to stay focused on your progress. But again, back to that communication issue, just because something is healthy and works for me, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So it's sort of a lot of detective work. I'm like, you have to sort of think of yourself as very fascinating. Be so curious and just like, that's interesting. So this leads me to another thing that I'm big on, which is this idea of being very attached to your goal or being committed to your goal. So when people are attached to their goal, it's very personal. It's all or nothing. It means they're making that goal, their success or failure means something about them as a person. They're either like awesome or they're a total loser. Usually there is nothing in the middle. It's one or the other. And so it becomes this all or nothing thing. You have to be perfect or you're not doing it. And this is when you get that cycle of starting and stopping. And then, I'm restarting. I'm going to be way better at it this time. When you can let go of that attachment and you can just be committed. So all of a sudden it means nothing about you. It's just information. And now you get to be that person that figures things out. Because guess what? Gosh, I've been doing everything right. I'm still completely constipated. I'm doing everything right. Okay, so let's figure it out. Don't get frustrated. Let's just go, something isn't right. And then you start playing around and starting to figure stuff out. So there's never a moment in time where you think you're not going to succeed. Because you're just like, well, there's no finish line. So I have plenty of time to get there. And I'm just going to figure it out. Every time I bump into something that's not working, I get to go, I got to try something different. And then you slowly but surely kind of work your way and keep moving. And again, check in with that progress. That's me.
No, I love that. It's the Einstein approach. That's another way that didn't work.
Right. But something worked. This is
exactly. Something did.
I'm big pet peeve. I want to know, everybody loves to talk about everything that's going wrong. I'm like, all right, before we go there, you need to tell me at least 2 things that are going right. And I really want 5 things, but I'll settle for 2 things. I want 2 things that are going right. It's the worst day of your life. 2 things today that went right. This is how I want my kids to talk to me now. My daughter, who has 2 little kids, my son, I'm like, okay, so I understand the kids are driving you crazy. Blah, blah, blah. Tell me 2 things that were awesome today. Let's just start there.
That's beautiful because, first of all, law of attraction, it's a universal law. What you focus on expands. So we want more of what you want, not what you don't want. So let's focus on that. It's a beautiful way to be. besides, and I love this, you touched on one of my favorite topics without even knowing it. And it's just, if you can't create a solution in the same mind frame that the problem was created in. So,
Right.
You've got to change your thinking and start asking better questions.
Right. I love that. But I just love that. It's just so empowering to go, oh, I can figure it out. I can figure anything out. I mean, I think back to that time with the gastro doctor and my daughter. That was that moment where for a second I thought, I don't think I can figure this out. But you know what I did? I was like, take a breath. Okay, freak out for a day, and then go, okay, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, that I love to mention, especially when it comes to when you're trying to figure something else, figure out something for yourself, is there are those times where you're like, I don't think I can do this. Step away. Go do something else. Come back to it when you're in a better mind frame. And I guarantee you the solution is there. You just haven't touched on it yet.
We are totally talking the same language. I am a firm believer that your subconscious knows it. It knows it all. And if you can just, my husband says you're gripping the racket too tight. Just loosen up, let go, and it'll just pop in your head. But you gotta give it space to bubble up.
Yeah.
And if you're just clenching this thing in your brain, there's no room. So you have to just you intuitively know it will come to you. It's in there. We know it. It's going to pop up. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. It's true. It's that inner knowingness, that guidance that, we do know the answers, because I mean, if you think about it, when man came onto earth, there was no schools to teach them how to be an architect and build a hut. There was no schools to teach them how to farm. Nobody taught, how to make the light bulb. It was invented from within. And so you have all the answers.
Right. It takes a lot of trial and error, but you can figure it out.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I think, and you probably come across this too, but with coaching and guidance, it's a lot of trying to help, get people to that place where they have the confidence, where they go, you're right. I do know what to do. And just reminding them, and being there and supporting.
Yeah. No, that's just the best way too, because, and as a coach, you're just there to help them figure it out.
But I love it. It's so fun.
It is. And, I've always thought of these things as puzzles, and I love a puzzle. So for me, it's like, okay, that piece didn't fit there. What other piece can I try?
Right. So, as a nutritionist, right, I can talk to you about food. I have guides. And, if you're a client of mine, you're going to get guides and guides and guides. We're going to talk about this, that, and the other thing, and lists and recipes. And I can give it all to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Unless you kind of embody that, unless it becomes part of who you are, it's just not something you will start to do as a sort of automated habit. So you have to sort of bring it in, and it has to become part of your identity. Oh, I'm this person that, I eat well, and that's the other thing is a lot of times people come in and they're just like, well, I want to eat healthy. And so we all want to eat healthy. That's like a life goal. Let's mostly eat healthy, but going to be to shift and go, I'm going to eat healthy starting today is very difficult. But you know what you can do today? You can eat better than you did yesterday. So
I don't know anybody who went from, potato chips to raw kale in one fell swoop.
Right.
I mean, on a regular basis.
Or I'm stuck to it. No. Yeah. Eat better. You have to make, I always say there's good, better, best choices, and you play around and you figure out how that's going to mix and work in your week or your day. And you just learn how to make those choices, and you understand what they are and how to make those choices. And it's little tiny things. I can give you an example, because a lot of it's for me, it's habit change.
Yes, thank you.
Right? It's habit change. We need to change. You need the lifestyle to match up with this identity that you want.
Exactly.
So little tiny things. And so, I actually eat well. I eat healthy food. I even know how to make my desserts, and, so that they're not gonna, spike my blood sugar. So I know how to adapt recipes. I do that. I do all of that. So even when I do bad things, they're kind of okay. I mean, it's not really a bad dessert. However, my big thing is I will overeat.
Mm.
So I will tend to eat more than I need to eat. So this would be that mindless munching, and there's certain places that we do this, the car, in front of the television, when we're with family and friends at a gathering. I'd say some people when they're reading. There's another, just for me, kind of wandering around the kitchen, like if I'm cooking, that's when I'll nibble.
Mm-hmm.
So you, again, shifting your environment to support your lifestyle. So I thought to myself, okay, what's one way that I can address this mindless eating? How can I minimize it? And I thought to myself, one way I can do this is my new priority or my new rule: no eating in front of the television. I cannot get a snack. I cannot take my dinner and sit down and eat in front of the television. No eating in front of the TV. That's it. And instantly, the next day, I like to read Yahoo News when I'm eating my lunch. I was like, oh, darn it. I can't read Yahoo News because I'm not eating in front of the television. And so somehow that completely morphed into me never being able to eat unless I'm completely mindful of what I'm doing. I can't read my phone. I can't look at my computer. I can't, I have to just sit with my food. And I thought, oh, and it was just like, oh, this isn't going to work. And then I took a breath and I went, no, that's not what I'm doing. All I'm doing is not eating in front of the television. And all of a sudden it became very doable again. But it was just like, whoa, I was like, don't die. I mean, I got sucked into being perfect. I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to do.
Overachiever.
And that's what happens. And then people take on too much and then they can't do it. And then they just give up. I'm like, no,
exactly.
One thing. We're just going to do one simple thing. And once that becomes super easy because it's just something you do, you don't even think about it anymore. It's now become mindless in a good way.
Exactly.
Now we can start thinking about some of the other stuff. Like, do I have a lot of food in my car? Let's clear the car out,
No, I love that. On that note, we do have to go to a commercial break. So we'll be right back. Can you believe it? It's already about halfway.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back in just a moment. I don't want to go to commercial. I don't know about you, but I'm enjoying her wealth of knowledge. Amy is amazing. But like I mentioned, we do have to. So before we go, I just want to say hello to everybody who's watching us live. You are appreciated. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Now, you can vibrationally align your aura. You can gain a larger and spiritual perspective on life, relationships, God, people, wellness, and money. You can also have moments of meditation and reflection any time of the day. And reading the thrilling, adventurous, and mystical story of Shiga will just add more faith to your daily experience of the mystery of the universe.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
As human beings, we are meant to thrive in an environment where true love is shared, where we are welcome just as we are. A space we connect with others with the single purpose to find God as love within. A place we learn to raise our consciousness and vibration for happiness, wellness, and wealth creation. Transformative, an online spiritual gathering for everyone. This invitation is sent to you by www.livingfaithschool.org.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And today's special guest is Miss Amy White. Welcome back. So before we go any further, I want to make sure that people have the opportunity to reach out to you. So what can people find when they visit your website?
So currently, if you go to my website there, I'll talk about kind of the Healthy You program. It's explain what that's all about and the idea of committing to your goal and bringing your body into balance. And there's a button on there. You can get on my schedule and jump on for a free call. Just talk about where you're at, where you want to go, that kind of stuff. I run a 12-week group coaching program. It's a pretty big program and I run it a couple times a year. So it starts again October 1st and it's so fun. I love the group think. I love the group energy. So I do love that group coaching model. So it's it's 12 weeks and there's always a weekly group call. And then everybody in the program also gets 3 one-on-one individual coaching calls with me. Oh, wow. So once a month we do that. But yeah, so fun. So that starts in October, which is my favorite time because it takes us through the holidays together.
Yeah. When some people need some extra support. I love that idea.
And ideas like how do I enjoy this Thanksgiving without all the things I used to do that weren't great for me? Well, let's make all yummy, new, delicious things that everybody will love. Yeah.
I love that. And I know that there is a wait list, correct? But
there is.
But here we go.
Yes.
I'm going to leave this up for a minute for anybody who wants to write this down. So, but people can also reach out to you from your website as well. And then be engaged with you that way. I love that so much.
If you get on the wait list, then they're on my email list. So then they'll be alerted when things start happening. And if I have any, I tend to run like a couple of free classes beforehand, and I'll have a free mini class starting on my website shortly, just so that I have something going between enrollment periods for people so they can start doing stuff immediately. Yeah.
So this is kind of like a cross between group coaching and individual. Is that correct?
Well, I always try to make sure everybody gets enough individual attention. So it's a group coaching program, but I tend to also historically, I've hopped on calls individually with people, because it is very individual. And there's certain things maybe you don't want to share with a group. So that's why I'm building in the 3 one-on-one consultations as well. But we also communicate through Messenger, and I have a private community so they can, talk to me that way too without the whole group there. But the women have always in these groups have been so amazing and so supportive. And I think people are making lifelong friends, which is really fun.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because, there's such a power in group coaching that people don't seem to acknowledge or really understand. If you think about it, I mean, of course, we all want one-on-one attention, which is amazing. And I'm not saying that there isn't a place for it because we are all bio individuals. Right. However, with the power of group coaching, you get that group energy. You get to know you're not alone. You have this community of people that you're around and with. And it just makes it sometimes easier and faster to get to where, on the right path. Yeah.
So, it's amazing. I love it. And I learn every single time from people that I work with. It's powerful and fun. I like the group. It's fun.
Yeah, and you're right. As a friend of mine would say, borrowed benefits.
Yes, borrowed benefits. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, because even if you don't share, you're going to hear something that's going to help you. So
Yeah.
No, I love that. That's pretty amazing. So I would love to get back to that conversation we were having about habits, because, I think that's, I love how you put it, to make it mindless, but in a good way, because it's kind of like when you're learning how to drive a car. When you're first learning how to drive a car, you cannot take your eyes off the road. You cannot take your hands off the steering wheel. You have to pay attention to absolutely everything. Yet fast forward some time, and if you're a woman, you're putting your lipstick on and
Right.
drinking a soda. I mean, hopefully not if you're healthy, but but you understand what I'm getting at. So
I do. Absolutely. It's funny. Yeah. My husband just said that to me yesterday. We were out at the pool and I was tying my bathing suit in the back, and he goes, "Isn't that fun? As kids, we had to learn how to tie knots in shoes, and it was just so laborious and hard. And now you can just tie that behind your back without even thinking about it." I'm like, yeah, it's one of those things. But so that's what we want to happen in our new lifestyle. We want all of a sudden those things to be that's where you go, is to that sort of healthy alternative. It's just naturally what you pick on a restaurant menu. It's, I'm going to have dessert. I'm going to actually make this mug cake that uses alternative, sweetener and some almond flour instead of that ho-ho, that I can go to get at 7-Eleven or whatever. Even if ice cream, like we have an ice cream maker, so we'll make ice cream. But you just sort of basically making these little upgrades, and you want to get to a place where it just doesn't occur to you to grab that thing that you used to grab, the potato chips or whatever your thing used to be. And knowing your personal triggers is important. There's something to be said. And so there is this moment in time where so I'm not a big fan. I don't love willpower. So as a strategy for success. However, you basically want to exert your self-control when you're trying to develop this new habit. Because the more you do it and the more you focus your self-control and do the habit, the less you need the self-control. So you get to the point where all of a sudden it becomes this automatic thing. Whereas if you're always counting on willpower to kind of get you through, and basically to sort of rescue you in a situation that you don't really want to be in, that's when it's going to fail. I just read a statistic that said it fails 50% of the time. And so if you're doing something 50% of the time, you are in neutral. Maybe you're not getting worse, but you're definitely not getting better either. So yes. So you want to sort of take the other statistic, or the thing that I read, was the people with the most self-control are the people that rarely have to use it, because they've developed these lifestyle strategies that keep them from those situations where they have to kind of be rescued by willpower or rely on that. And I totally believe that.
Well, and then there's people like me. There's certain foods I can't do in moderation. There's no such thing as moderation for me. So don't tell me that just have a little. You can go ahead and say that for you, but that doesn't work for me. And I learned that, like, for example, cheese is my nemesis.
Hello.
So my body hates me when I eat it, but there's still something about it that I'll still eat it anyway. But
and that's what I mean about knowing your personal triggers, because everybody's going to have some of those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm saying cheese.
Yeah. So that's why it doesn't exist in my refrigerator, because I will eat it. I will get up in the middle of the night. I will go with, not even hungry. I will go to the refrigerator and start munching on it with the door open. So, I can't do that.
I'm not. So I like to say there's no food is a bad food. I mean, unless we're talking about processed carbohydrates or, processed crap, but no food is a bad food. But I can't keep a lot of fruit in my house, because I will eat all the fruit until it's gone.
Yeah.
And we're in Northern California, and right now we have 3 peach trees that just came in, 2 plum trees that just came in, a pluot, and a nectarine. Is that right? Anyway, really hard. So right now I'm eating a lot of fruit because you can't help it. But I generally try to avoid that because I know I don't have a stop button for fruit. And I know it's not a bad food, but yet you can still overeat it. And especially if you're a sugar addict like I am, it will get my sweet tooth humming. And then all of a sudden other things seem well, I really could stand to have a Reese's peanut butter cup. Yeah. I don't eat Reese's peanut butter cups. So know my trigger. It's
Yeah, exactly. Because, willpower, the thing too with trying to rely on willpower is when you fail,
yes.
you're going to make that mean something about yourself. And then all of a sudden, not only did you not, make a step towards, on the path that you want to be on, but now you're a failure in your own eyes. You've got all this conversation going on up in the hamster wheel of a brain, telling you how awful you are. And
so the person that's relying on willpower tends to be the person that is also attached to that goal. They're making that. So you're exactly right. It means something. You hear that all the time. I just don't have any willpower. I have no self-control, and it's just kind of like you do, but maybe you're just not using it properly. So maybe if you use it to create these boundaries, to create these sort of lifestyle habits that will work for you, that's a better use of that willpower or that self-control.
Well, I think that whole willpower, self-control thing is kind of funny too, because there's times I've been extremely angry, but I don't haul off and hit somebody. Right. I don't do anything like that. I can hold my tongue. So obviously I have some sort of self-control.
So isn't that interesting? Because I think there are points in our life where we do draw a line in the sand.
Yeah.
And you don't cross that line. And so there's a lot of places in our lives where we're just like, yeah, maybe, right? And we haven't drawn that line in the sand. And so sometimes you do, when it comes to sort of diet and lifestyle choices, you have to actually step back and you have to draw that line. Yeah. And you just go, oh, I'm a person that doesn't do that thing. So you actually say that to yourself. Oh, right. I don't eat potato chips. I'm the person that doesn't eat potato chips. So it's funny because you're 100% right. There are places that we don't negotiate in life. Everybody has their own things, but that's one of them. And you can create more of those, but you have to choose to do it and recognize that it's a thing.
Exactly. And then that goes back to how you talk to yourself too, by saying, oh, I'm trying to quit sugar, for example. Well, you're always going to be trying if that's the case. But if you're somebody who doesn't eat I like to call it recreational sugar. Yeah. Because it is a drug. Yeah. I don't eat recreational sugar. Then all of a sudden, that's who you are. That's who you become, because that's how you're speaking about yourself. I'm a non-smoker, or I'm a non-drinker, or
I just said that today, and I heard myself say it because in 2020, March of 2020, I stopped drinking alcohol because it was one of those moments I was like, okay, it's going to go one of two ways. I'm either going to stop or I'm going to drink a whole bunch more. And so I thought, you know what? I think I'm just going to stop and see how it goes. And I haven't had any alcohol since then. And I remember my husband and I were just talking about something today, and I was, I forget what it was, but I was like, oh, and I don't drink alcohol. And I went, wow, I just said that. I like I don't drink alcohol. That's a thing now for me. And
yeah, that's funny too, because I haven't drank in like 7 years. I quit a while ago, and but that was because I drank too much, and so it was definitely an unhealthy lifestyle for me. But the funny thing is that I just decided that I was a non-drinker, and that's who I've been ever since then. And when I met my boyfriend, now we've been together about 1.5 years, and he had decided right before we met that he was going to spend 30 days without drinking, and he hasn't had a drink since we've been together. And he considers himself a non-drinker too. I'm just like, oh yeah, I guess that's kind of different, huh?
Yeah, it's amazing when you think of yourself. So you basically identify as a thing. And so as you're shifting your lifestyle factors, you need to start identifying as this person. Oh, I'm a person who gets up and I walk 1.5 blocks every morning.
Exactly.
That's you identify as a person who gets up and walks now. Yes. Very different than a person who's like, no, I like to lay around in bed until 11. You could be that person, but maybe you want to be a different person. So you start to change the person you identify as. Yeah. And it is amazing to say, oh yeah, I don't drink alcohol. I gave it up because it was completely disrupting my sleep. And I am so protective of my sleep, which brings us to this whole, own your wellness. It's not just food. It's about how well you're sleeping. It's your stress level. It's whether or not you need exercise or movement. Those are two totally different things. So exercise is a stressor, and it's good for the body if you're not already under high stress.
Exactly.
Movement now is always good for the body and something we should be doing, but there's so many different pieces to the puzzle. And then once again, you start getting fascinated and interested, it all starts clicking and coming together. And you just, it's amazing how we forget what good feels like until you get it.
I mean, you just get used to not feeling 100%, and that's your normal. And you don't know. I love the saying. I had a teacher that said this about her marriage. She said it was like carrying a heavy backpack when she got divorced. And she said, and she didn't realize how heavy it was until she set it down. And I was like, that stuck with me. I mean, it's been like 25 years since she told me that. And I still remember watching her say that. I mean, that's how impactful it was.
I love that. But it is true. And whenever I'm helping somebody sort of eliminate inflammatory foods, but maybe it's something that just really struggling to give up, and they just like, well, let's just do it for this amount of time. Let's see how you feel. And then we'll reintroduce. And I hate to say this, but my favorite thing is when they reintroduce and like, I feel terrible. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. Because now you can see it's so exciting when your body will give you that feedback and it will go, yeah, no, this is not good. Let's not do that. So I like when you get that feedback.
Exactly. And it's feedback. And, and that's the thing too. Like, I just want to touch on those, not so gut friendly choices, like maybe birthday cake, for example. It's not necessarily, you don't eat that all the time. If you have a little sliver, you get to celebrate a person, but you plan that. It's not that you go and get a sheet cake from Costco and eat the whole thing on your own. That's not the same as having a little bit in celebration of somebody else that's planned.
Well, and that's what I'm like, again, fear no food. Especially once you recognize what works for your body and what doesn't work for your body, there's no fear because you know what's going to happen. And then from there, you just get to make choices. Well, I'm going to have some birthday cake. I'm at this party with my friend and it's her birthday. It's exciting. And I do love cake and I don't have it. But tonight, you know what? I'm going to have a piece. And you know what? I might not feel great tomorrow, but I'm making that choice. And it's okay because then once tomorrow gets here, I'm just going to get back to doing the things that make me feel good. Exactly. So it's okay. It's like, you don't have to be perfect. No. I think perfect is boring. It was boring and it's not sustainable.
It's really not sustainable. And then you end up missing out on or feeling like you're missing out on certain things. But the other thing too is if I'm allergic to nuts, I'm probably not going to eat a bunch of nuts. So if it's really making me not feel well, then probably a good idea if I stay away from that and for my own well-being. So, you do get to make that choice yourself as well. Right. But I mean, like you said, there's been times where I know full well I'm not going to feel well and I still choose it.
Right. Of course. As do I. And the nuts, if something like that doesn't make you feel good, it's a lot easier. You don't have as much struggle. It's more like, no, I don't eat nuts. It's that simple. Again, you're just like, and that's something too, we all run into food pushers, people that are like, no, just have some. And if you say, oh, I can't, I'm on this diet, or, oh, I don't eat that kind of food, or I can't eat that kind of food. That's just giving them ammunition to convince you that you can. So instead, you should always approach that kind of a thing with, oh, thanks, I don't really want any. Or I don't want it. And as soon as you say you don't want it, there's nothing they can do. That's it. End of story. So there's a lot of little things you can do that kind of help.
No, that's a phenomenal idea. I never even really thought about that. I always thought about the drinking question because when I first decided to stop drinking, I still spent a lot of time. Well, actually I didn't really, but I was afraid I was going to start spending a lot of time with my drinking friends again. And, they're pushers.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Have a drink, just one. You can have just one. Yeah. I'm sure I could have just one, but I'm not going to have just one. So the answer is still no. But, it's just no, thank you is so much more powerful than no, I can't. Or no, I don't want it. Thank you, though.
As soon as you say I can't, they're going to go, well, yes, you can.
Exactly. And part of that too, and I love to mention this, is it's because they want it. So it's, they're trying to justify their own action.
Yeah.
Not that there's, a judgment there. It's just, that's human nature. So
I will admit I'm a little competitive. So for me, I'm like, I don't want to break my streak. I'm like, no.
I'm the same way. Yeah. I totally get that. We're running low on time. So I want to make sure, is there anything that you would love to share that you haven't shared yet with the audience, or anything that you want to reiterate as I put up your website again?
Just that it's very doable. And it's, like you said, own your wellness. You have complete control over how you want to feel, how you want to look, how you want to move through age. And I'm a big proponent of excellent mobility, strength. Yeah, for sure. That's huge. So
that is huge. And, we didn't even really touch on like movement versus exercise, but I mean, we do have like 3 minutes. So I would love for you to explain the difference, because you said about one being a stressor and the other one, because I think people tend to think of like, okay, I've got to go to the gym, but I hate the gym. I'm not going to, and then they just sit on the couch instead. It's that black and white thinking as opposed to.
So movement, anything you like to do. What do you like to do? Do you like to walk? Do you like to kayak? Do you like to ride your bike? Do you like to play with your dog? That's movement. Pickleball, tennis, all of that movement. Excellent. Exercise is going to be more of a stressor on your muscles. So now we're talking about more resistance training. Running, hit exercise also, but I'm a big proponent of strength training, especially as we age, because muscle is your organ of longevity. So we need the muscle. So, however, if you're already under a lot of stress, exercise is going to stress your body more. And these are the people that tend to work really hard and see no results.
Yeah.
Because their cortisol is just way too high. And so their body's very out of balance.
Yeah, that was me for the longest time. I actually had a lot of success because I was overweight, and I was always small, but I was definitely, I'm sure you've heard of the term TOFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. And I was like 30% body fat. Yeah. And I wasn't very big, but I ended up getting my body fat percentage back down really quickly. But then I just sort of hit this plateau where I wasn't getting any stronger. My muscles weren't, and it was because of my job.
Stress, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Literal stress 24/7. That was an awful experience. Yeah. So sometimes, like I said, there's more to health and wellness than broccoli and burpees. And if you're not taking care of your mental health and your emotional health, then you're not healthy. You're not. It doesn't matter.
If you want to just pick one thing, if I had to pick one thing, I would say, let's master your sleep. Let's just get this figured out. Oh my gosh. When you wake up after a good night's sleep, you know it. I mean, you just feel different. And so for me, it's like, let's just master that. And, along with all the other stuff. But if there's one thing I had to pick, I would focus on sleep. So for me, exercise is this tier 2 thing. We don't even talk about that at first. It's like,
I love it.
I'm ready for that.
Yeah, no, and it's true, but sleep. Yeah, I love that saying. I'll sleep when I die. Okay, well then you're planning on dying sooner, because that's what's going to happen.
You have to prioritize sleep. It's the studies that show what happens if you just miss, I think 1 day of sleep, or if you're continually getting just 6 hours, it's scary.
It's scary.
I was just reading something about micro sleep, and how even though people they're sleep deprived, but they don't realize they go into these micro sleeps constantly throughout the day. And if you think about it, your eyes are open, but your brain's basically shutting down. And if you're driving, or, it's super dangerous. Yeah,
it is dangerous. Well, that is all the time that we have for today. I want to thank you, Amy, for being on the show. It has been such a pleasure having this conversation with you. I'm glad you could.
It's totally my pleasure. I so enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That's all the time we have. So we'll see you on Thursday. Happy week, everyone.